Well, times have definitely changed since the days of two-handled faucets. The new ones are definitely a little more stylish. They look a lot better, and in most cases they work a lot better and take a little bit longer to require service. But when they require service, it definitely requires some new techniques, and perhaps the parts are a little bit more expensive than the old style would be. One of the first things to look for is there standing water at the base of the handle. The next thing to look for quite often is a trace of either calcium buildup or perhaps even rust in this area here. If you do detect any of these conditions, it's probably a pretty good idea to go ahead and take the handle off and check and make sure there's not a bigger problem than you can see. Now, before proceeding any further, it's definitely a good idea to make sure we don't have to extend this to taking off the drains down below. Make sure that you've got strainers or something else in both compartments of the sink. This little set screw is pretty small and it'll be real easy to go down the drain. Now the next thing I want to line up is two spray bottles, one with vinegar and one with water. We're probably going to need to be able to dissolve a little bit of calcium buildup in the area of that set screw, and definitely want to get in there, dissolve a little bit probably in the upper handle area. The handle may be literally sealed in with calcium carbonate, and it may take time to loosen the calcium carbonate up. The actual set screw is usually covered by a little decorative cover, and you definitely want to set this aside and make sure it doesn't go down the drain. The actual set screw is usually Allen headed, but whether it's metric or English will depend on where the unit is manufactured at. This definitely can take several treatments and might even have to go on over a period of hours to be able to get all the calcium loosened up before you can even get the set screw out. But be patient, keep squirting, keep treating, and sooner or later you'll be able to get the Allen wrench in there and take the set screw back out. By this time you definitely should have already turned the water off, but in this case open the faucet wide open and make sure no water is coming out before you do anything else. Then you get to figure out what type of Allen heads you've got on the little set screw. In this case I'd say go ahead and take the little Allen headed set screw out completely if you meet any resistance at all taking off the handle. Because if you do, you're going to have to do some more treatment with your vinegar water mix. Once you've got the handle off, you want to take a careful look at the top here and make sure you know exactly what you're in for. If there's a lot of calcium here and it's crusty, that means you're probably in for quite a task from here on out. If it's a little creamy looking, that's okay. That's the actual lubricant that's used inside the actual cartridge assembly. You'll notice I'm merrily twisting away and nothing is happening. That's because the little latches on top are not engaging, so I can't take the cover off. This is just a good old-fashioned decorative cover. The actual mechanism is under this. Now actually it was intended to screw off, but in my case what I've got to do is pull in all these little black tabs on the top, then I can just lift the cover off. Now I've still got to take this little outer ring off because there is a nut underneath. I've got access to get the actual holder off. And from this point forward, make absolutely sure you have zero water pressure. Okay, now that I can unscrew this little black cover on top, you definitely want to take one more last look down below and check for calcium buildup. If you see any, you definitely want to go to do your treatment here to make sure that you dissolve all the calcium before proceeding with this next step, because it's the one that's going to be the hardest. This is an actual threaded cover that holds the cartridge in place against water pressure, and you're going to need a large adjustable wrench to be able to access it. Once you've got this outer brass holder off, and the cartridge probably is going to come out with it like mine did, you want to make sure things look good down below. Pull the cartridge out, check the condition of it, look the holder over, check and make sure the threads are in good shape, and also make sure there's not excessive calcium buildup. And then where you go from here is going to depend on exactly your condition as far as the faucet itself. Did it come with a house or did you put it in? If you put it in, then hopefully you saved the paperwork so you're able to go to your favorite box store or hardware store where you bought it or order over the internet. If you didn't, then you're going to be off to Lowe's, Home Depot, or the hardware store with the one you have trying to match it up. Now in my case I bought mine and I did save the paperwork, so here's what the pricing looks like for a new cartridge from eBay and a new cartridge from Lowe's. You can definitely save yourself a couple bucks if you plan ahead. Now the new cartridge in place, it's definitely time to put the cover on and screw everything back together. Actually, I'm making a mistake here. Let's see if you can figure out where the mistake is before I mention it later on in the video. And yes, I had to take all this back apart again. Now I'm tightening all this up by hand, but actually you probably should use a pair of gloves. I actually did slightly cut my hand on the threads when I was tightening this up before. Now once you get it hand tight, you probably just want to go ahead and take the wrench and tighten it up just using your fingers. Don't put any wrists into this. And then once you've got it good and tight, crack the water back on and see if you've got any leaks. But make sure you don't over tighten this because you can break this cartridge. Again, once I reach this point, I'm definitely going to do a water test to check for leaks. After that, I'm going to put the outer cover back on. This little black ring does thread on, and after that you can just slip the cover over the top of it and pop it back into place. Well, now it's time to go ahead and put the handle back on and tighten up the set screw and check for proper valve action, a final water check for leaks, and sail off into the sunset, right? Well, not exactly. Well, here's the problem. No hot water. The handle moves to the right, but it won't go to the left. So, okay, what's going on? Okay, so how did I lock out my hot water? Well, this is the original cartridge, and as you note, it has free movement inside the little bore. It can go all the way up and all the way down. And if you take a look at one more thing, that switch, of course, on the top, it's in the left-hand position. All right, let's move that switch the other way. Now it's in the right-hand position. This is the way the new cartridge was. It restricts the movement of the lever. This effectively gives you a hot water lockout, so you don't get any hot water or very lukewarm water if you leave the switch in this position. I'll leave you with this cartridge disassembly. How these work is there's a metal plate that's in the bottom of them, and it bears up against a specially piece of cut ceramic to get a very, very tight, precise fit. The ceramic has grooves cut in it that move around that allow the water to be directed to certain ports. I haven't tried, but you probably could get some good old-fashioned food-grade grease and then grease up the top of this, and you might even be able to rebuild one of these. That'd be a future project for me. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you found this video both interesting and useful. If you did, definitely consider giving me a like, and for sure consider subscribing. I've got a whole bunch of other videos coming along pretty soon you're probably going to want to see. Until our paths cross again, and y'all take care now, and this here is the Engineer on the Side. We be gone.